Today, I am going to do a quick analysis of a classic clip from The West Wing. Okay, so just a little background here. In the 90s, there was a big push to shape the social consciousness of America, and they succeeded. This show might have been before your time. I think the last airing of it was in 2006. We have a young Martin Sheen playing the president, his sidekick CJ, I really remember her. Aaron Sorkin had an agenda, and that was to, in this instance, to make homosexuality a non-issue, and frankly, I think he ended up succeeding. But anyway, I had a student send this to me once because they knew that I was a proponent of the Torah, and that Christians really should be walking in the Torah and doing it properly. And I just want to remind you that if we walk in the Torah properly, what it ends up looking like is Jesus, not the Pharisees, not the Sadducees. It looks like Jesus. So that's the idea that we should have in our minds. But of course, when we look at the Old Testament, some of the things that we read there makes us feel a little bit uncomfortable, which we're going to see in this clip, and I'll commentate along the way. So here's the clip.
You know, with so many people participating in the political and social debate through call-in shows, it's a good idea to be reminded every once in a while. It's a good idea to be reminded of the awesome impact. I'm sorry, you're Dr. Jenna Jacobs, right?
Yes, sir.
It's good to have you here.
Thank you.
The awesome impact of the airwaves and how that translates into the furthering of our national discussions, but obviously also how it can forgive me, Dr. Jacobs, are you an MD?
A PhD.
So notice that the writers are trying to make her look pretty pompous, trying to set up a vibe here. A lightning going off in the background because he's about ready to grill her, that type of thing.
PhD.
Yes, sir.
In psychology?
No, sir.
Theology?
No.
Social work?
I have a PhD in English literature.
I'm asking because on your show people call in for advice and you go by the name Dr. Jacobs on your show, and I didn't know if maybe your listeners were confused by that and assumed you had advanced training in psychology, theology, or healthcare.
I don't believe they are confused, no, sir.
Good. I like your show.
He doesn't like her show, so you'll see that.
I like how you call homosexuality an abomination.
Okay, so what I want to do here is I want to see, does the Bible in fact call homosexuality an abomination? And it does. So here we are in Leviticus 18. I'm going to go down to verse 22. You shall not sleep with a male as one sleeps with a female. It is an abomination. Now, I do want you to notice, and I do this in all my videos, I'm always going to use the NASB because I don't like, Bible hopping. If there is a word or two that I need to look up in the Hebrew or Greek or look at the construction in the original language, I will do that. But in fact, Yahweh does think this is an abomination. It is pretty clear. And yeah, that's about all we need to say about that at this point.
I don't say homosexuality is an abomination, Mr. President. The Bible does.
Yes, it does. Leviticus
18:22.
chapter and verse. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions while I had you here. I'm interested in selling my youngest daughter.
So what the writers want to do here is they want to look at other things in the Bible that are basically repulsive to all of us, and they want to make it all, put it in all the same category. And they're saying, well, hey, if you're going to do this homosexuality as an abomination thing, you've got to be consistent. So should I also be able to sell my daughter as a slave? So the bottom line is that the writers have not done their Bible homework. They don't really know the original cultural context. And I think this is important too, is that some people say, well, back in that original cultural context, maybe God did have a bad taste in his mouth for homosexuality, and now that's changed because of the cultural context. You can't do that. Some things are exactly as it says, and some things are not exactly as it seems. And it depends on how we project back our cultural understanding onto the text. This will be one of them, so take a look.
Into slavery is sanctioned in Exodus 21:7. She's a Georgetown sophomore, speaks fluent Italian, always cleared the table when it was her turn.
All right, so let's take a look at Exodus 21. And here's what it says. Now, if a man sells his daughter as a female slave. So this word slave, I'm just going to go to Enduring Word Commentary. I've looked at the scholarly literature too, and I like to look at things that you could easily find on the internet. Don't believe everything you see on the internet, including me, right? But I'm going to leave the link below. You can make your own evaluation. But here, the ideas of man stealing, in other words, taking another human for your own purposes and abusing them in whatever way, and a lifelong servitude, the concepts many have of slavery. So I do want to outwardly, right now, condemn the African slave trade. So yes, what we did as white folks, that we brought black people over from Africa and enslaved them, was absolutely wrong. It was horrible. The things that we did were just, it makes me upset inside. Now, what is going on in the text here is not that kind of idea, but we're projecting that on to the text, and we shouldn't do that. So the commentator writes, simply does not apply to the practice of slavery in the Old Testament. Normally, slavery was chosen or mutually arranged, of limited duration, highly regulated. So I'm going to go down here because there's another part here on verses 7 through 11. And I'm going to continue to read the text, but just to couch it for you, this probably refers to a girl who is sold by her father, not for slavery, but for marriage, betrothal. Probably the origin of the custom was the same in either case, to avoid paying a higher bride price at a later age and to rear the future daughter-in-law within the family, ensuring that she fitted in. Such an attitude to slaves abolishes slavery, except in name. So right, yeah, in name only. So the idea here in Exodus 21 is that perhaps the young girl was in a poorer family, and they really got along with the boy's family. And what they did was, instead of paying this bride price, they were able to put her over into that family, and she was able to eat and be awesome in that family, and they loved her. And sometimes it was for the son, but sometimes it was for the master too. In other words, the head person of the house. And the designated her for himself would have been betrothal. Now, let's just say that, for whatever reason, that it wasn't working out. Then he shall let her be redeemed, meaning that he can't just get rid of her to a foreign entity, whatever that might be. He's got to give her back to the family, and they can repay to get her back, in a sense. He does not have authority to sell her to a foreign people because of his unfairness to her. So if you continue on, basically all that's going on here is it's a situation where the family with the girl could get some money, and able to provide for her. And, just culturally, I think in Eurocentric countries, we don't understand this. I was a missionary in the Philippines for a little while. When I first got there, I was expected to have this house servant. And it was really uncomfortable for me. Her name was Mary Faye, and we paid her money to basically make our meals and such. And we friended her, but she had to kind of learn that we weren't trying to make her a slave at all. We just wanted to be her friend and provide for her financially. And she was able to help her family out with all that. So I think just culturally, I think we take our idea of the African slave trade, we project it back onto the text, and that is not what is happening at all.
What would a good price for her be? While thinking about that, can I ask another? My chief of staff, Leo McGarry, insists on working on the Sabbath. Exodus 35:2.
So let's just go ahead and take a look at Exodus 35:2. For 6 days work may be done, but on the seventh day you shall have a holy day, a Sabbath of complete rest to the Lord. Whoever does any work on it shall be put to death. Now, just from a Jewish perspective, I think you need to know that the stonings and burnings, I don't think ever happened. Stoning maybe happened once or twice. There is one instance of it in the Bible. But when we read of it in the Bible, you have to understand that the same thing happens in the New Testament as well. Ananias and Sapphira were put to death by the Lord. So it is a highly unusual situation that happens. You would think that it happens a lot because it's a command of God, but it really doesn't happen a lot. And I want to illustrate that. When you look at Jesus, who is essentially raising up in popularity among the people, and people are thinking that he's the Messiah. In John chapter 8, the Pharisees and scribes have got this opportunity to bring a woman caught in adultery to Jesus to see what he does. If he does not agree with the law of Moses that she should be stoned, then he's obviously not the Messiah because he's not agreeing with the law of Moses. But if he does agree with the law of Moses, then they're going to stone her, and then the people are like, you're a big killer. So they're trying to trap Jesus, and it's just not going to work out for them. So what I want to do is I've done some writing on this, and what I essentially do here is I'm going to put as much of this I can down in the text below. You can read it. It's chapter 6. It's an unpublished manuscript. But what I want to show is how at one singular time, Yeshua was able to show extreme grace to this woman, but also come down hard on sin. And the reason that Jesus is able to do this is that when you do the Torah properly, it's got like a lot of loopholes in it, in a sense. It really is a gracious document, but it's like this. God really tells us what will in fact ruin us, what will hurt us as a society, as people. And so I'm just going to read this to you. Maybe you'll find it boring. I don't know. To understand how Jesus does it, in other words, how he acts so graciously to this woman but still upholds the Torah, it's important to see what Jesus said, what he didn't say, and why he said what he did say. So Jesus starts his one-sentence response saying, "He who is without sin among you." So he starts there. Here's what Jesus knows. By the Spirit, yes, but also from the Torah. He knows his Father is compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in loving kindness. Thus, whatever happens to this woman must be in alignment with his Father's character. Jesus also knows the scribes and Pharisees aren't pursuing justice and only justice, and that loving this woman, their neighbor, isn't their intention. So this is the loophole number one here. I do want to read to you Deuteronomy 16:20. This is right here in the Torah. So justice and only justice you shall pursue. So the idea here is, if we are going to execute these capital punishments, well, you can only pursue justice. And that's a loophole. You see, Jesus is going to call them on that. That is not their goal here. The Pharisees are not pursuing justice. They're trying to entrap Jesus, trying to entrap this girl, and they can't do that lawfully. All right, so go back here. So justice and only justice. And John's testimony confirms this. They were saying this, testing Jesus, so that they might have grounds for accusing him. In this way, the scribes and Pharisees are sinning, and Jesus calls them on it. Lots of times, readers of the adulterous woman text wrongly believe the sin to which Jesus is referring is general sin, as in a lifetime of sin or original sin. While the scribes and Pharisees were sinners, just as we all are, that's not what's happening here. Instead, Jesus is properly applying the Torah to a specific transgression, namely the Torah's prohibition of entrapment. At this point, Jesus has effectually turned the situation on the scribes and Pharisees. Now, they're the ones that are facing indictment. If they kill the woman amid their transgression, they'd know they'd now, be the ones in danger of stoning. The Torah stipulates the hand of the witnesses shall be first against him to put him to death. And then, should the elders deem either of the two witnesses invalid because of sin, they shall do to him just as he had intended to do to his brother. So, if they stone her wrongly, as they would have done, then they would have had faced the punishment of stoning as well. Jesus continues, let him be the first to throw a stone at her. Notice that Jesus does not say, don't stone her. Instead, Jesus tells them to throw it. Why? Here's what Jesus knows that most don't, then and now. While Yahweh's commandments never contradict each other, they're structured in a way that often offset the other, thus allowing for the simultaneous condemnation of sin and the proliferation of grace and mercy. In other words, if one implements Yahweh's Torah lawfully, which is Paul's instruction to Timothy, it's nearly impossible to carry out the consequences for what the Torah deems weightier infractions. And then I go into some other examples. So I just want you to see there that the Torah is designed to tell us not only what sin is, but there are levels of sin. There are some things that are not going to damage the kingdom so much or your body so much, but there are other things that do damage yourself, our societies more than others. And those are the ones that are, I guess, it's not punitive, it really be the word, but needs to be stopped by capital punishment. Although the Torah doesn't really allow us to play that out quite a whole lot.
Clearly says he should be put to death. Am I morally obligated to kill him myself, or is it okay to call the police?
Okay, so in this one instance, they were to stone the man, and it did happen. But here's the thing. Again, it doesn't happen much in the Bible, like maybe one or two instances, I think. I can't remember exactly, but it's just like almost nil. But this is an indictment on society. Just the fact that Yahweh has the elders throw those first stones is a way of saying, the whole thing is messed up. And when you got people in your community that are doing this, the whole thing's messed up. Yeah, I gotta stop there because it gets pretty complicated. I'll work more of these details out in other videos.
Here's one that's really important, because we've got a lot of sports fans in this town. Touching the skin of a dead pig makes one unclean. Leviticus.
You have to understand in Hebrew, tahor, tummy, or tamai, it's tummy, but these are concepts that we don't really have in English, so we say clean and unclean. And generally speaking, what I found with students of the Bible is they don't understand that unclean does not equal sin. So, for example, once a month, a woman goes on her menstrual period, and she is unclean during that time, but that doesn't mean that she is engaged in sin. It's just it's a category of ritual purity or impurity. But again, impurity doesn't equal sin. It doesn't mean that God hates it, doesn't like it. It's not like God doesn't like pigs. God made pigs for a purpose. God made periods for a purpose, not to equate the two. But these things are all, they're right and good in their context, and we just need to be able to relate to these things in the right and proper context. Now, I do want to read you the text so you know exactly what's going on. Over here in Leviticus 11. And the pig, it is unclean to you, so you shouldn't eat that. So these are kosher laws. You shall not eat any of their flesh, nor touch their carcasses. They are unclean to you. So what the president is doing here is relating a football to a carcass. No, that would be a stretch. A carcass, the thing is as I look at the kosher laws and things like that, the bottom line is that Yahweh is not the author of death. Yahweh is the author of life. And Yahweh wants to give us object lessons and wants to make sure that everything that we put in our mouth, that we're around, all helps us understand that Yahweh wants us to always pursue life. That's what God wants for us. Now, there is a few stretches, I think. So over here on kabod.org, can I wear pigskin shoes? They're talking about hush puppy shoes, but also throw in this play football or rugby with a ball made of pigskin. And so the short answer, this rabbi says, hey, there's no prohibition against using or touching such items. And here's the longer version of the answer, and I'll leave the link below, but This particular teacher cites Rashi. At the turn of the millennium, Rashi's a pretty big deal rabbi, and his commentary basically says, hey, during Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot, that's what we're talking about here. I don't think that the text actually says that. I think it's more in line with the idea that God just doesn't want us around death. And then, after the pig has been processed and there is a football, we're no longer around death anymore. We've turned something into a product. Now, the person who actually did kill the pig would be unclean, but that doesn't mean they're sinning. It just means they're unclean. And, I wouldn't maybe go into that vocation. Maybe you can tell me below what you think about that. If you are a Torah person, I think there's a little bit of wiggle room on here. But, the bottom line is, a Bible teacher, I don't want to go against anything of what Yahweh wants for us, but, I've got to deal with these issues as well because, the video does. So let's take a look again at the video and we'll keep going here.
Leviticus 11:7. If they promise to wear gloves, can the Washington Redskins still play football? Can Notre Dame? Can West Point? Does the whole town really have to be together to stone my brother John for planting different crops side by side?
Okay, now they're not using chapter and verse anymore, and the reason is the writers are counting on the fact that you're not going to look up the text. And if I were to go back to the text, here's what it says, actually. So here we are in Leviticus 19, and there's other places in the Torah that it talks about this, but here's a pretty quick place. You are to keep my statutes. So Yahweh's talking, keep my statutes. You shall not crossbreed two kinds of your cattle. You shall not sow your field with two kinds of seed, nor wear a garment of two kinds of material mixed together. This is an object lesson. The object lesson is that Yahweh has brought his people out of Egypt into a wilderness time. They are preparing or rehearsing for the promised land. And what Yahweh wants them to do is to worship and to serve him. He wants them to come out of their past life, their pagan idolatries, and Yahweh wants them to not mix. He doesn't want them to mix in marrying other cultures because, as we know, I know this, that when I married Amy, her background now becomes my background in a big sort of way. And Yahweh doesn't want this to happen. Yahweh wants to give object lessons to say, I don't want you to mix. I want you to do things the way that I want you to do them. Because if you don't, you're going to forget my laws. You're going to forget me. You're going to forget all about what Yeshua has done on the cross and the Pentecost or the Shavuot and where I'm headed with this whole thing. I want you to walk with me, and I don't want you to mix stuff. Look, I just got to tell you straight up, there is a lot of pagan holidays, holy days, that we have adopted those practices and brought them into our lives as Christians, and we think it's not a big deal, but the thing is, it's a big deal. It really does alter how we think.
Can I burn my mother in a small family gathering for wearing garments made from two different threads?
Yeah, and here's the thing is Yahweh never says that. Capital, I say punishment, but it's not really punishment. It is, I'll have to get to this at another time, but the consequence is trying to tell the Torah observant person how anti-kingdom these particular activities are. If you were to wear a garment that has two different threads or plant the two seeds together, that type of thing, Yahweh does not call for capital punishment, but they're in this program trying to lead you to believe that God is completely irrational and not compassionate at all, and he wants her to look like a doof, and the writers are succeeding.
Think about those questions, would you? One last thing. While you may be mistaking this for your monthly meeting of the Ignorant Tight-Ass Club.
Yeah, so the writers want to make sure that if you are trying to be a person who understands that marriage is between one man and one woman, and that you want to be faithful to Yahweh's commandments, that you are now a part of the Tight Club, and it's trying to shame you. So, I'm just letting you know that this program really had a big effect on our social consciousness, and it shouldn't be. So, President, I'm not voting for you. I'm glad that you're off the air, and we need to move on with our lives. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I will see you next time. Let's make it 2 weeks. Bye.